Picture this. It's 1531 in Mexico. You've got this massive clash of empires and beliefs going on, and right at the heart of one of the most significant events in the history of the Americas wasn't a king or a conqueror. Nope, it was a humble, ordinary man. So let's dive into his incredible story. So who was this man? Well, he was caught right in the middle between the world of his Aztec ancestors and the new faith brought by Spanish missionaries. And his story really starts with his name, a name that kind of hints at this powerful voice he was destined to have, a voice that would deliver a world-changing message.
So let's start at the beginning, with his life before everything changed. Who was this man, living through one of the most chaotic and transformative periods in history?
Okay, so his birth name, it tells a whole story on its own. Quaxilhuarotzin. In his native language, Nahuatl, that means talking eagle. See, he was part of the Chichimeca people, and that name connects him right back to his indigenous roots way before the Spanish ever arrived, and he became known as Juan Diego. So think about it, he was born into the world of the Aztecs. He lived a pretty simple life, and he and his wife, Maria Lucia, they converted to Christianity about a decade after the Spanish arrived. But then his wife passed away, and he became this really devout widower, known for taking these long walks just to get to Mass. We're talking about a quiet man, but with a really profound faith. And it was on one of those totally routine walks to church that his life and, the course of history was about to change forever. Let's head over to Tepeyac Hill and see how this whole thing unfolds. The whole thing goes down in just 4 incredible days in December of 1531. You've got the first encounter, then a request for some proof, a sudden family crisis hits, and finally, the miraculous sign. So on his way to Mass, Juan Diego suddenly sees this beautiful, radiant woman who speaks to him in his own language. And she tells him she's Mary, the Mother of God, and that she has a request. She wants a shrine built right there, on that very spot, a place where she could offer her love and compassion to all people. Okay, so Juan Diego does exactly what he was asked. He goes straight to the bishop, a man named Juan de Zumarraga. And the bishop, he listens patiently, but let's be real, he's skeptical. I mean, who wouldn't be? This incredible story from a poor indigenous man, he needed some proof. He asked for a sign.
And this is where the story gets really interesting, where it becomes a true test of faith. And it's not just about the bishop's doubt, it's about a personal crisis that hits Juan Diego hard.
I mean, think about the timing. Just as he's given this huge, divine mission, a very human crisis blows up in his life. His beloved uncle, Juan Bernardino, falls deathly ill, and suddenly all his focus snaps away from the lady's request and straight to his family. He is completely overcome with worry, right? He decides, I don't have time for this mission. I need to find a priest for my uncle before he dies. And in this moment of just sheer desperation, he actually tries to sneak around Tepeyac Hill, taking a different path to avoid seeing the lady again. Can you imagine? But, of course, she meets him anyway. And right there, in his moment of total anxiety and grief, she speaks these incredibly famous, comforting words. She reassures him that his uncle will be healed and that he has nothing to be afraid of. So, with his fears finally calmed, the lady gives him the sign the bishop was asking for, and it's something totally, completely impossible for that time and place.
The sign was just wow. On this barren, frozen hilltop in the middle of December, she tells him to go gather flowers, and what does he find? Beautiful Castilian roses, a type of flower that doesn't even grow in Mexico, just blooming there in the dead of winter. So he gathers up these impossible flowers in his tilma, that's his simple cloak, it's made of cactus fiber, and he just hurries back to the bishop, carrying the proof he was told to get.
But here's the thing. As it turns out, the roses themselves, they were only part of the miracle. The real sign was something nobody could have ever seen coming. So imagine the scene. Juan Diego opens his tilma, and these beautiful roses just tumble out onto the floor in front of the bishop. And everyone in the room is just stunned into silence, because there, imprinted on the rough fabric of his cloak, is this perfect, radiant image of the lady from the hill. But the real power of this image was in the details. It wasn't just a painting, it was like a message, written in symbols that the indigenous peoples would understand instantly. For example, she's standing in front of the sun, but not blocking it out, which showed she was greater than their sun god, but not God herself. It was basically a visual story, a gospel that communicated the whole Christian message without a single written word.
So, after the miracle was accepted, the shrine gets built, just like she asked. And Juan Diego, he lived out the rest of his life right there, in a little hermitage. He became its caretaker, sharing the story with pilgrims and just dedicating himself to a life of quiet prayer until he passed away in 1548.
Fast forward nearly 500 years, and he's officially recognized as a saint. And Pope John Paul II, I think, summed up his legacy perfectly. He called him a model of humility, a bridge between two completely different worlds, and his powerful symbol that God works through the poor and lifts up every single culture.
The story of the talking eagle is just this incredible reminder that huge world-changing events don't always come from the rich and powerful. Sometimes it comes from the quiet faith of one person who's just willing to deliver a message. And it leaves us with a question to really think about. How can the humble change the world?